We finished our UFC Vegas 83 recap video. Go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. Now we've got some matchmaking to do. Before we get into that though, I just started a TikTok recently. It's called Savage Rounds MMA, same as here. It's just short form MMA content. I've been doing prop of the week, pick of the week, underdog of the week, and we've hit 2 of the 3 prop of the week so far since I've started doing that. A plus 700, a plus 400. So go check that out. If you haven't seen it, follow me. And let's get into the matchmaking. I forgot to add Tatsuro Taira into the list yesterday. I don't know why I missed out on him, so I've got him in there now. So it's up to 10 fighters from 9. Everybody you see in front of you, starting off with Tatsuro Taira. He's undefeated so far in the UFC. He's come in and looked fantastic. Maybe had a little bit of trouble in one fight versus Edgar Shirez, but nothing crazy. He still dominated that fight, looked very good in it. He comes out, gets his first KO over Carlos Hernandez in this most recent fight. The rankings come out yesterday, Tuesday morning. Tatsuro Taira is not in the top 15 for flyweight. A lot of people are confused. I thought there was a chance he'd get in, but I also thought maybe he needs one more fight. The competition he's been given is kind of weird, to be honest. Like, you'd think he would take that next step up at some point pretty soon. He really hasn't yet. So he's not in the rankings. He needs to get in the rankings. Somebody who's struggled that's in the rankings near the bottom, David Dvorak. They were, I think I have it here. I feel like they were matched up before. The fight didn't end up making it to the octagon. I can't remember what the reason was. So I think we just redo this. David Dvorak, 3-3 in the UFC. He started off great, 3-0, and now he's on a 3-fight losing streak. So he went 3 up, 3 down, all in a row. That streak, all losses have come by way of Nicolau, Kopp, and Steve Erceg most recently, who was on his UFC debut, getting a ranked guy, and is able to beat Dvorak. So probably needs to defend his rank here against Tatsuro Taira, somebody that deserves to be in the ranking. I like Tatsuro Taira a lot. I can't wait to see him in the rankings. This is definitely the fight to make for Tatsuro. Next up, Steve Garcia. I'm doing Steve Garcia because while the man is on a run like he is, 3 wins, 3 KOs, he's looking good. Kind of got to give him his props. He's down at featherweight now after being at I almost said flyweight, at lightweight for the majority of his UFC fights. This last fight against Melchizedek Alcosta was supposed to happen like 2 weeks ago or something. It gets pushed back. Steve Garcia got sick, if I'm not mistaken. They rescheduled the fight, but it's up a weight class at 155. I assume there's no reason not to assume he's not going to continue at featherweight. So that's the weight class I did a match make for, that I made a match for him. I think we go David Onama. Both guys are kind of looking for that step up in competition, and David Onama's looked good so far. He was supposed to fight November 4th against Lucas Alexander, pulled out. Has 3-2 in the UFC so far, beating Gabriel Benitez, Garrett Armfield, Gabriel Santos in his most recent one, all inside the distance. He's looked very good. His losses have come to 2 very good opponents for your first 5 UFC fights. Mason Jones, Nate Landwehr, both by unanimous decision he lost. So he's faced some tough guys, lost to him, beaten the guys that I don't want to say he should beat, but are kind of around that level where you think he can compete. Steve Garcia, I don't want to say making waves, but he's looking good recently down at featherweight. Both of these guys are looking to take the next step up towards the rankings. Obviously, neither of them would get in the rankings here, but just kind of take that next step. And man, would this be a barn burner. These guys both throw bombs. David Onama, I'd say a bit more well-rounded. So it'd be interesting to see if he decides to work in the takedowns there. But for the most part, this would be a banger striking matchup. I'd love to see this fight. One of these guys goes down, no questions. Next up, we got Andre Muniz. He's had an interesting last 3 fights. Struggled really hard in the 2 before this one against Jun Young Park. Brendan Allen, Paul Craig. He takes a loss in both of those by finish. We move on up. He's taking on Jun Young Park in his next one. He's out of the rankings. And I think there is a case to be made that he lost this fight as well. I know he was given the decision victory based off of that control time in round 3. If we're taking into consideration damage, control time, I always tend to lean damage. I understand it was a lot of control time, and it wasn't maybe like the craziest damage. He wasn't dropping these like fight finishing elbows, but it was more than any sort of thing that Andre Muniz did towards finishing the fight. He did nothing towards finishing the fight. He was looking for control time. So I think there's a case there to be made. Jun Young Park should have gotten the win, and Andre Muniz should be 3 down, 3 losses in a row, but he's not. He gets the nod versus Jun Young Park, and he's still kind of in that, I'd say that like 16 to 25 range, right outside the rankings. Somebody who's coming up from welterweight recently, had a very good debut at middleweight. He was ranked at welterweight. His first fight at middleweight versus an unranked opponent on short notice. He looked, like I said, he looked great, looked massive, and now he'll probably be looking for a fight that will get him towards the rankings in middleweight. Michel Pereira, I think this is the one you make. Battle of the Brazilians. There wasn't enough good things I could say about Michel Pereira at 85. I know we didn't get to see too much because, and it was a short notice opponent in Andre Petroski, but just physically, the dude looked super impressive. He was absolutely massive. Didn't look drained whatsoever. Didn't look like he put on too much weight. It looked like it fit him well. He looked powerful in there. He got the quick knockout. And being ranked at 170 coming up, taking on an unranked opponent, he's got to be close to the 185 rankings. Muniz is, like I said, never really left that 16 to 25 area. So I'd love to see these guys take each other on. The winner takes that next step towards the rankings. Maybe the winner gets a ranked fight. It'd be some kind of deal like that, but I'd love to see this fight made. Obviously, can Michel Pereira fend off the grappling of Andre Muniz? Can Andre Muniz get it to the ground and avoid all the devastating punches from Michel Pereira? It would be a banger. I'd love to see this one. Next up, Sumadarji, another guy who has had some troubles in his past few fights, these last two specifically. Matt Schnell, he was looking really good. He had Matt Schnell on skates for nearly 2 straight rounds. Matt Schnell was able to dog that one out, tire out Sumadarji, get the takedown, wear on him, and find that finish in the second round. Then he comes out, long layoff. He's supposed to be taking on Alan Nascimento, a grappler. Gets a short notice replacement in Tim Elliott, a grappler. And he goes out there. He doesn't look like he's prepared for a grappler at all, or his grappling is just so subpar. It doesn't matter. He could prepare for it all he wants, but it's never going to help. That's what it looked like to me. It was unfortunate for him. Tim Elliott comes in, gets the job done. He made it look easy, to be honest. Sumadarji now, though, I believe he's like 13th or something, near the bottom. 2-fight losing streak. There's a fight coming up this weekend in Tagir Ulanbekov versus Cody Durden. I'd love to see him take on the loser of this fight. I think I said the loser. Yeah, the loser of this fight. The winner would obviously get to look up a bit. But yeah, it feels deserved at this point for one of these guys, to whoever wins, to kind of get that, I wouldn't say next step up, but just kind of look up the rankings instead of continuing to fight in that small crowded area down at the bottom of the rankings. So they'd get to look up. Obviously, Sumadarji looking to prove that he still deserves to be in the rankings. With both of these guys, though, to be honest, he's going to have trouble. I almost did Tatsuro Taira. They fought on the same card. I think you could have matched them up, but I leaned away from it from the grappling. I go back to the drawing board, make new matchups. It's all grapplers anyway. I think Sumadarji struggles versus whoever he takes on here, but it really just feels like the next step for him. And it'd be a good win for the winner of this fight, whoever gets to do it. Next up, Tim Elliott, the guy who was able to manhandle Sumadarji. Made it look easy. Alan Nascimento was going to make it look easy. Tim Elliott now lost to Mokaev, was on his way to winning if he's able to survive that third round, not get submitted. 2 refs had Tim Elliott up 2-0 going into that third. Mokaev gets the sub, and like I talked about it a bunch already, he comes in, makes it look easy, gets the sub versus Sumadarji. I don't know if he fights up yet, in my opinion. Not quite. He probably needs to I think, to be honest, if you're in the rankings or you're coming into the rankings, you need to put a streak together to be able to fight up the rankings. Otherwise, you've kind of got to defend your spot or fight down until you can put together that at least 2-fight win streak to start looking up. Tim Elliott needs to put 2 together. Somebody coming up, Steve Erceg, he comes in, short notice debut, beats David Dvorak, Steve Erceg, unranked debut, beats ranked David Dvorak. Is supposed to be fighting. I can't remember who his original original matchup was with. Not too long ago. That fight gets scrapped. Alessandro Costa steps in on short notice. I bet Alessandro Costa in that one. If his gas tank holds up, he's able to push that third round. I think we get the win there. We'll never know. It was short notice. Steve Erceg does well though for what he can do. Gets the win. He's now on two wins in the UFC. He's still ranked, I think, Tim Elliott just makes the most sense for kind of his next logical step. Tim Elliott looking to build that win streak. Like I said, I think this would be a good fight. I think we could get some really fun scrambles here. Steve Erceg is an awkward guy to deal with. Obviously, Tim Elliott's an awkward guy to deal with. This could be a fun one for sure. A scramble fest for sure. And on the feet, these guys are both a little weird, so it would be fun. Next up, Jamie Mullarkey gets put out early in the first by Nasrat Haqparast. It was always the straight shots that were going to do it. Jamie Mullarkey, he won his last fight before this versus, what's his name? John McDessie. Didn't look good in that one. Wasn't really a convincing win by any means, and you probably, at this point in his career, you should probably beat John McDessie convincingly if you want to have any chance at making a run towards the rankings. Jamie Mullarkey kind of just needs to step back. I don't want to say reevaluate, because it's not like he's a horrible fighter by any means, but kind of just needs to step back, restart this run, get going back up. He needs to fight somebody coming up, somebody that is coming up, that's looked very good in the UFC so far, and could definitely make for a fun fight with Jamie Mullarkey. We've got Manuel Torres. He's 2-0 in the UFC, 2 knockouts so far. His first one in his debut, I think it was Frank Camacho or something. He was obviously going to win that one. He comes out versus, why can't I remember his name? Something Mata. Why can't I remember Mata's first name? Whatever. He beats Mata. And Mata, maybe chin issues, but a very powerful puncher. He looks good early. Manuel Torres is able to answer with a mean step-in elbow, puts him out cold. And yeah, Manuel Torres is kind of just looking to take that next step up an opponent. Jamie Mullarkey losing. He's been like hot, cold, win-loss recently, so probably needs to fight an up-and-comer instead of somebody like John McDessie, somebody like Nasrat Haqparast. He's not really in that spot anymore. Needs to build a streak before he can get back to that spot. Manuel Torres looking to kind of replace Jamie Mullarkey in that spot. I think you make this fight. It's a banger. It would definitely be the toughest test so far for Manuel Torres, and if he's able to get another knockout, we've got a good prospect on our hands for sure. Next up, the man who was able to defeat Jamie Mullarkey in such fashion, first round knockout, Nasrat Haqparast. He's put 3 wins together in a row, 3-fight win streak. I can't remember. I don't know why I can't remember who the first one was. I was just looking at it, and then he beats Landon Quinones, and now we're here. He gets the win versus Jamie Mullarkey. Great fashion. Like I said, a first round knockout. He looked good doing it. Not much like pushback in that fight though. It was pretty quick. And with those 3 fights, I won't say he's looking towards the rankings yet, but he's kind of pushing himself towards that spot right outside the rankings, that 16 to 25 area. He's kind of pushing himself into that spot, and if he can get a win versus somebody else who's pushing to be in that spot, maybe then you start talking about the ranks. If he's able to put 4 together, or if the guy also pushing for that spot is able to beat him, you push him in there. Elvis Brenner looked very, very good so far. Definitely making a run at like newcomer of the year type deal, whatever they call it for the UFC. 5-win streak for Elvis Brenner currently. 3-0 in the UFC. 2 of them being KO TKOs. He debuted Zubaira Tukhugov. Very tough debut opponent. Got the split decision win, and then goes out there to finish Guram Kutateladze, who is no joke. Very good fighter. And Keon Kraszewski on short notice. It is what it is. What can you do? But he gets it done regardless, does what he's supposed to do. I think this would be a banger striking match. Obviously, Elvis Brenner has the jiu-jitsu to back it. And like I said, these guys both on 3-fight win streaks in the UFC, both with at least 1 knockout in those 3. Like I said, Elvis with 2. So I'd love to see these guys take each other on for kind of that push towards the rankings. Whoever wins this gets that push towards the rankings. If Nasrat Haqparast is able to live up to all that hype he had early, if Elvis Brenner is able to continue building that hype he's got now, I think it would be a very interesting, fun matchup for sure. And I'd love to see the UFC make this one. Next up, Anthony Lionheart-Smith takes the fight on short notice against Khalil Roundtree Jr. Doesn't quite go his way. Wasn't really able to kind of get started in the fight. Before that, beating Ryan Spann, though. Next up for Anthony Smith, he's kind of in a weird spot. He doesn't have to defend his rank yet, in my opinion, but he can't keep. I mean, obviously taking the fight on short notice is a gangster thing to do, ballsy, and I guess in the sense he was not defending his rank, but kind of fighting down, defending his spot in the ranks against lower guys. I kind of think he has to do that again here. He doesn't get to look up, even though he took a short notice fight. He got finished. A fight coming up, I believe it's, did I write it down? Yeah, it takes place on January 20th in the new year. We've got Dom Reyes taking on Carlos Ulberg. That's going to be a banger. One of those guys is going out for sure, unless we see Dom Reyes put on the wrestling shoes. We know his wrestling is decent. He's got good takedown defense. It would be interesting to see if he ever puts on the wrestling shoes, especially against a big, powerful guy like Ulberg. I doubt it. I think we see a striking match, but the winner of that, I think, gets to take on a big boy in the rankings. Obviously, Dom Reyes, the streak has been unfortunate. Started off 12-0 in the UFC, or 12-0 in his career, 6-0 in the UFC with 4 finishes. He takes that fight versus John Jones for the belt February 8th, 2020. Since then, 4-fight losing streak. Other than John Jones, or after John Jones, all 3 have been knockouts. It hasn't looked good for him. Carlos Ulberg, on the other hand, kind of starting his UFC career. Well, I guess not the same, because Carlos Ulberg did lose to Kennedy Nzechukwu. He lost. Was that his debut? I think I have it here. Yeah, so he wins on Contender Series, round 1 KO. Looks great. UFC debut, looking good early. Gasses in round 2. Kennedy Nzechukwu is able to get that finish. Since then, 5-fight win streak. 4 finishes, most recently a round 3 submission win versus Dong Jung. I'd love to see one of these two guys. With Dominic Reyes, if he gets a win over Carlos Ulberg, kind of a great way to re-kickstart your career. Try and build back up to what you were looking like you could be. For Carlos Ulberg, continuing to build on that momentum. If you're able to get a win over Anthony Smith, that is a fantastic win to kind of start to build. For Dom Reyes, build back up. For Carlos Ulberg, start to build. So I'd love to see this matchup. Fun fight, regardless of who's in it. Next up, Khalil Rountree Jr., the guy that gets the dub. Fantastic performance. Very arguably the best of his career. By far the most important win of his career. He's supposed to be taking on, I believe he was like the 15th ranked or 14th ranked Azamat Mirzakhanov. A very tough striking matchup that was going to be. I think it may have ended up being a tougher fight for him stylistically than Anthony Smith. I think Anthony Smith leaves quite a bit to be desired in his defense at this point in his career. But regardless, Khalil Rountree gets the dub. He's looking very good at the moment. He's on a nice little run, kind of after The Ultimate Fighter. Maybe it didn't go exactly how he thought, but now he's making that push in his career that he thought he could make. A fight coming, and I believe Khalil Rountree's 8 now. So there was supposed to be a fight coming up in Alexander Rakic versus Jan Blachowicz. That fight can't happen. Blachowicz is hurt. Rakic is starting to call out Jiri Prochazka for February, but Jiri said he didn't want to get in there till March. He's trying to get the fight on that Miami card. Regardless of who Rakic takes on, it kind of lines up with Khalil, especially if they fight kind of towards the beginning, those first 3 months in the new year. Rakic versus whoever he takes on. I think Khalil Rountree should fight the loser of that. Obviously, the winner gets to look up and is probably in a title eliminator match next. But the loser obviously would need to defend their kind of top 5 ranking. Khalil Rountree deserving of that bump up. It would be very interesting to see Khalil Rountree in there with like the elite of the division, the current elite, because not to say Anthony Smith has never been, but get in there with the guys who are in their prime right now, who are making those title pushes right now. It would be very interesting to see Khalil Rountree in there with those guys, so I'd love to see that. We don't know, again, who Rakic is fighting. It seems like there's 2 big options, with Jiri wanting to wait until March. Maybe Yan is fine by then, and they just go with the original matchup. Maybe Jiri steps in. I don't know. But the loser, I think, should take on Khalil Rountree. Next up, the loser of the main event, Chris Gutierrez. He looked like he was in there fighting to not get finished, which I personally am not a big fan of Chris Gutierrez's style in general, just not a big Chris Gutierrez fan. I think he's talented, but it's not the most entertaining. He kind of needs like a Hail Mary crazy thing to find the finish. And, I mean, it's just kind of leg kick, teep kick, run around the gate. So, I don't know. Not the most entertaining in my opinion. He was supposed to fight Montel Jackson not too long ago after a loss to... I can't remember. He lost to somebody, and he was supposed to take on Montel Jackson outside the rankings, defend his rank. That fight doesn't happen. Aoriqileng steps in. Chris Gutierrez makes easy work of Aoriqileng over 3 rounds. Easy unanimous decision. Chris Gutierrez, I thought they were going to reschedule that Montel Jackson fight somehow after beating Orichi Lang, or was it Alatang Haley? Oof, that's bad that I can't remember. One of those two, Orichi Lang or Alatang Haley, I can't remember which one it was. One of them loses to Chris Gutierrez, and Gutierrez somehow gets this giant jump up to fight Song Yadong. Obviously, they're just looking to get Song active right now. I don't think it was quite deserved for Gutierrez. Now he takes that step back. I think, dude, fight Montel Jackson. We need that fight. Montel has been very deserving of at least an attempt at getting into the rankings. I think he would probably beat Chris Gutierrez in my mind. I see him beating Chris Gutierrez, so I'd love to see this fight get made. I think Montel Jackson's very deserving, and I don't know how Chris Gutierrez got the Song Yadong fight after fighting someone unranked, but it is what it is. I'd love to see this fight made, mostly for Montel Jackson. Last up, Song Yadong. Maybe not his most impressive performance, but he still dominates that fight. No, like, really blips in the road for him. I won't say makes it look easy, but there was no pushback from Chris Gutierrez, really. He was leading the whole time, Song Yadong was. And you kind of look up, and 135 is in a weird spot right now because you've got, like, dudes like Merab and Corey who have been promised title shots relatively recently, but then Cheeto gets to jump them. Now Cheeto's fighting Suga in March. You've got Henry up there who might be fighting Merab, I don't know. You've got Figgy jumping into the mix now, and you've got Peter Yan who's on a 3-fight losing streak, who hasn't fought in a while. It's got to be Figgy or Davison in my opinion. I said Figgy or Davison, Figgy or Yan. Davison Figueiredo's fight against Rob Font, I did a matchmaking there, and I matched him versus Peter Yan. This little triangle of fighters right here, 2 of them have to fight. There's a third guy that's going to be left out. They'll find another matchup for him somehow, but 2 of the 3 of these guys have to fight. No matter what the combination is, the fight is an absolute banger, and the winner would obviously really be looking towards a title eliminator probably next. And obviously the guy that gets left out would be a little sad. You know, the only guy that wouldn't get a title eliminator next if they won is Peter Yan. I think if these 3 guys get matched up and one of Song Yadong or Davison Figueiredo wins the matchup, even if it's versus Peter Yan, I think that guy gets a title eliminator next. If Peter Yan wins, I think he would still need to build a little bit. But I'd love to see 2 of these 3 guys get matched up against each other. Like I said, no matter the combination, the fight is a banger. Some really good striking in this little group of fighters right here. But that's all. This weekend, we've got the last card of the year, UFC 296. I can't wait. Tomorrow we're doing predictions and bets. Like I said, TikTok will have prop of the week, my favorite play of the week, underdog of the week, stuff like that. So go check that out. It'll probably be out on Friday. Come back tomorrow for this. Drop a like, subscribe. Peace.